Welcome to the pre-show, everyone.
Yes, indeed. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Dressed, it looks like they've gone for sort of like an Eastern European medieval boyar getup thing now.
Pretty
A very,
exotic.
I would say, very, very colorful. Sort of I don't know, Cossack meets steppe kind of thing. I don't know. It looks good on them. I mean, it's very colorful.
What step again?
Well, the steppe, the prairies of Russia and Siberia and all that.
Oh, okay.
You see the women have all of these headdresses on. You
Yeah.
see I forget what they call them. It's some Slavic name. Then you see the men all have these big astrakhans on their heads and the big coats and it's amazing.
What's that Russian dance that's famous? That old-timey dance?
Oh, I know what you mean. Where they do a lot of kicking, but
Yeah.
I can't think of the name for it. But they all look like they could be doing it.
Yeah. For sure. That's what it makes me think of.
Yeah. All right. Well, gang, if that's how you want to look, more power to you. It does look very elegant. It's got a certain, I don't know, Michael Stroganoff kind of look to it.
It's not a Cossack dance? Russian Cossack
Yeah,
dance?
it's a Cossack dance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So they're looking kind of Cossacky is the best way I can put it. Sort of boyar Cossack kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they have the money to
Yeah,
change it up.
they can,
You know what I mean?
they can dress any way they want, and I mean, I think it's a good look. It fits them all. It all suits them. I mean, none of them look bad.
All right, thank you to all the new patrons, and thank you to all the patrons. Without you, this would not be possible. So thank you so much.
Yep, we're very, very much indebted to you, and what can I say except that without you, we wouldn't be here.
Okay, so after all the moaning and groaning over the short half-hour pre-show, I put a healthy amount of questions for this pre-show. We put 11 questions. Okay, so
11. That's one less than the regular show, so you guys are getting really, really buttered up.
Yeah,
Is the only way I can put it.
yeah.
We're trying to stay on your good side this week.
Well, I think what did I say a couple episodes ago? The main source of human value is their ability to coerce.
Yeah.
And so I guess they took that to heart. It's you yell and you scream and you coerce, and then you get what you want.
What does our Lord say? Knock and it shall be answered. Ask and it shall be given you. And that's what's happened. They knocked us around and then they asked.
Yeah.
So, and then they show up dressed like Russian Cossacks. So it's okay. I guess it's a statement of some kind, and we hear you. You don't have to draw those swords. We get it. We're here for you.
All right. First question is from Adrian.
Adrian.
Good day, gentlemen. In Puritan's Empire, page 332, Charles mentions that he, quote, suspects a grand strategy on the part of certain unnamables, end quote, in the lead up to World War I. Will Charles please name them?
No.
Right. Next question is from Nate. What is Charles' advice on writing poetry? I'm taking a poetry class and I've not written poetry in a while. Also, how do you overcome writer's block?
Those are two questions. But we'll deal with the first one and then the second. We'll do it in normal order instead of my usual reverse order. Read a lot of poetry, a lot of good poetry, stuff that rhymes, has meter. Read Tennyson, read Herrick, read Kipling, read Tolkien, who's a very fine poet. Read a lot of really, really, really good poetry. I mean, if you want to be a writer, ladies and gentlemen, you have to read a lot. Lots and lots and lots and lots. And then you have to write a lot. You read a lot to see the different ways that language can be used, and to find out what appeals to you. And then eventually a lot of your writing will be like pastiche. It'll be an imitation of your favorite writers. There's no way around that. That's the period we all go through. And then you discover if you keep writing and writing and writing, you eventually discover your own voice. But you have to go through and then you've got to keep reading all the while. Never stop.
What if you're an aspiring poet and you read a lot of books, but you don't feel feelings?
Well, then I think you really should not be a poet. That's what I think.
Do you think there are any sociopath poets out there? Is there a desire as a sociopath to express yourself through poetry?
It's probably blank verse. A lot of the modern poets, probably Allen Ginsberg was a sociopath. I mean, basically any poetry that doesn't please but inflicts itself, I would say probably they're sociopaths. Sylvia Plath was probably a sociopath.
What is Ginsberg really a sociopath?
Ginsberg?
Yeah,
sure, he's a sociopath.
What makes you say that?
Well, one, because I don't like his work, and two, because what little I knew about him personally, I didn't care for. And so, three, a sociopath is as good a way to smack his memory around as anything else.
That's anti-Semitic.
No, he wasn't an Arab.
Homophobic.
No, that's not my primary reason for disliking him.
All right.
No, my primary reason for disliking him is that I couldn't stand his poetry. I mean, his most famous poem, Howl, I saw the most brilliant minds of my generation destroyed. And I read that, it goes on at some length. When I read that, I had a thought for my rejoinder. I would call it foul. I saw the most mediocre minds of my generation rise to the top.
I was watching a Bob Dylan documentary a couple months ago. And Ginsberg was on it. He was in that crowd. And it's interesting to me because I wonder about that generation and what fascinates them. You try to get to the heart of it. Like, what impresses them? What about Bob Dylan was so impressive? And
well, he would not feel so all alone. Everybody must get stoned.
I don't know. It's so mysterious to me. I'm tempted to say the whole boomer generation is just sort of shallow, superficial, and easy to impress with sort of some subtleties, various subtleties. Like Bob Dylan impressed everybody by not selling out to the man.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How many roads must a man walk down before they'll call him a man? And how many times must a white dove sail until she can rest in the sand? And not just that, I have another question for you on top of that. How many roads must a man walk down before they'll call him a man? Well, I'll give you an answer to all three. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. Yeah, the answer is blowing in the wind. Yeah. And not just that. The times they are changing.
Oh.
And you know what else? You know what else? We shall overcome. These are the songs of a generation. And let me give you some advice, smart guy. If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. Because you know what? In the streets of San Francisco, you're going to meet some gentle people there. All across the nation, there's a strange vibration. I could do this all day.
Yeah, let's not. Otherwise, we're gonna have to call 911 for toxicity
Well,
poisoning
wait a
from
minute.
boomer
Wait,
lyrics.
well, no, I'll say. As the resident junior boomer, I am here to say that those lyrics, that time, that place, meant so much to those people. You got to understand, there was the war, the assassinations, the civil rights movement. It was a time of change in America. It was a time of questioning old values. It was a time when young people were trying to be free to express themselves, to find a new way to you get what I'm saying.
All right, that leads me to a tangential question. If there was
Okay.
no Vietnam War, how do you think that would have impacted that movement?
I
You
would have
think
taken away a lot.
it would have taken away a lot of steam, huh?
It would have taken away a lot of the feeling of victimization.
But what else is there?
But that's the problem. That's a big problem.
Right.
It would have taken away a lot of victimization, and also if the civil rights movement had not been a thing at the time, that would have taken away a lot of the steam. Oddly enough, I think if the post-Vatican II changes had not been occurring, that would have taken away a lot of the steam.
That's
But
a chicken.
fortunately,
That's a chicken or an egg thing, though. To me,
it is. But again, these were all elements that were in the air. If you took them away, what would have been left?
honestly,
I don't know.
I think I'm getting this from you. But if you trace everything back to, if you trace all the troubles back of the 20th and 21st century, they all go back to the world wars.
Yeah,
War II.
ultimately.
Really?
Well, both of them, to be honest, the two world wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really do. That's true. I mean, my dad, when we've had this discussion, I've quoted him before, but he always said that the worst thing that happened to the country in his time was World War II. And I believe that was, yeah, because the 60s really, these other things contributed to it. And of course, without them, it would have been very different. It was a perfect storm,
Yeah.
as so often happens in history. If a single element had been missing, it would have been different.
No.
But and mind you, these things were not necessarily causally connected, but because they happened at the same time, you may, let's say you're working two jobs, and money's very, very tight because they're both garbage jobs. You're not making much in either of them. Together, they're not a lot. And you're feeling kind of sick, so it's hard for you to get to work. But then you trip and break a leg. Well, everything's changed.
Yeah.
Because you can't work. But mind you, you're still feeling kind of sick, so that'll complicate your recovery for the leg. No, I mean, it was certainly a strange time, but you're also right. I think the way senior boomers feel about that era, a lot of them. I mean, some of them don't, but a lot of them really feel that Dylan and Peter, Paul, and Mary and all the protest songs and all that really meant something. If you want a feeling for the kind of self-satisfaction that some people of that era really feel even now, I can recommend 3 films, one of which I really actually like.
Okay.
The first, the one I really like, is called Field of Dreams. I really like it, but it reeks of boomer self-satisfaction.
I've never actually seen the whole movie. I mean, I know the premise, I know the lines, I know various famous scenes. I've never actually watched the whole movie. I never see it on TV.
Well, you'll probably have to go on to video.
Yeah.
But watch the thing; it's worth it. It's a fun film, but again, you'll understand what I'm talking about when you see it. So that's the one thing. The second film is called The Big Chill.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't even have the redeeming features of Field of Dreams. That is just an orgy of how wonderful we were. But if that isn't enough for you, and you've still got an anchoring to, feed your inner boomer, I didn't even know you had one, but there it is. Then I have to recommend the final one of the trilogy, The Return of the Sea Caucus 7.
That's a new one. We haven't heard from you.
Oh, well, now you have. It's an old movie. An old movie now. I don't think of it as an old movie, but it is. And of course, you can't go wrong watching reruns of 30 something.
Okay.
You've heard of that television program?
No.
Heard of the actor Ken Olin?
Ken Oland? No.
Olin. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he made his big debut in 30 something. But I would definitely recommend 30 something if you want to know how the boomers felt in the early 80s about themselves. I mean, it's all coming to terms with, you know what I'm saying? It's like, because, yeah. I mean, we're supposed to be like grown-ups now and like deal with houses and mortgages and spouses and children and I mean, I don't, what is this all about?
All right.
You seem singularly unimpressed.
I am. All right. Next question from Nate.
All right.
You often lament the collapse of education in our country and the world. How can Catholics work to revive education in the church and in the world more generally? What method of education is the best in your opinion? Please actually answer the question.
Somebody has been watching the show. All right. Well, Nate, it's like this. The first thing you can do, of course, is try to acquire some education yourself, depending on how much you've got. That's very important. There are a number of good Catholic academies out there that feature really traditional Catholic education. I would say that any decent education is going to have several elements. One, and this is something a conviction I've come to when speaking about elementary school, the obvious skills, reading, writing, arithmetic, but also Latin and Greek. I know that sounds bizarre to suggest that be taught in elementary school, but the truth of the matter is that children can learn all sorts of stuff by rote. And the thing about Latin, Greek, and other languages is that children can learn lots and lots of nouns, declensions, verbs, and conjugations. Other way around, actually, but never mind. They can memorize all sorts of vocabulary, and they need to be challenged to do so. Because I believe that if you do that, by the time they hit high school, they can do things like read Homer and Virgil in the original languages, which is very useful. It's good for the mind. I believe that history, literature, and civics have to be very, very strong in primary and secondary school education. They just aren't taught this stuff. And I would say that in addition to those useful things, critical thinking is an important tool. One of the reasons why you teach literature, why you teach foreign languages and history and all that, is so that you can teach people how to think, how to question. When you examine a work of literature, for example, you've got to apply some critical thinking to it. Who is the author? What is he trying to convey? Why is he trying to convey it? We don't teach this. I'm of mixed feelings about the great books programs. They have a certain real utility, a certain value, without a doubt. but very often, not necessarily always, they're taught without a great deal of historical context, and I think that's extremely important. As to what you can do about it, well, look around. There are all sorts of classical academies and Catholic classical academies being formed in various parts of the country. And there are colleges like Thomas Aquinas College, like Thomas More, like the college that was formerly called Magdalen. They have a new name now. I don't remember what it was. Christendom. Now, these colleges all have somewhat different approaches to education, but I think they all have their application. They all have their drawbacks. They all have their advantages, and you really have to look into them yourself. But you do need some kind of a background. This is going to sound very funny, but I'm a great believer if you have children, whether or not you homeschool them, you really need to use things like Classics Illustrated, like we had it when I was a boy in the house, the Universal History of the World by the Golden Publishing. It's all online now. It's very biased. Their treatment of the Reformation, for instance, is very pro-Protestant. So, I mean, you really have to watch it. But it does give a good summary of what happened, suitable for young people. It goes from the earliest days of recorded history down to about 1965, 66. Everything after that you'll have to make up on your own. But there are things, there are shortcut books like that. I'm thinking that one day I might publish a list of these sorts of helps, that you pull, things you could pull off the internet to shortcuts to learning, I guess is the best way I could put them. They're not really a proper substitute for learning, but they're a lot better than nothing.
All right. Another question from Nate. Why is Sister Lucia of Fatima, one of my personal heroes, not a fully canonized saint? And her two cousins are. What can I do to advance her cause? What books do you recommend on Our Lady of Fatima?
Well, William Thomas Walsh wrote a book on Our Lady of Fatima, which I recommend very, very highly, called Our Lady of Fatima. There's a book called Lucia in Her Own Words. Well, that would be useful, especially because it's by Lucia in her own words. Then, as far as why she hasn't been canonized yet, I think part of the reason is precisely because her cousins died when they were children. That's Sister Lucia, A, died a lot more recently, and B, it takes a lot more to prove an adult was a saint than someone who died early.
Okay. What year did Pope Benedict become Pope?
2005.
Is Sister Lucia, is she venerable or blessed at all? I mean, has she gone down the line at all?
I don't think so. And that's the thing. I don't know that that there's been a cause introduced for her canonization. If there has been, then you want to find out about it. And see. If there hasn't been, then
it's kind of unusual. Right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think part of it too is apparently her cause has been introduced. I don't normally cheat, but I am now, just because it's interesting and important to me. So to answer your question, the first major step in her cause was completed in 2017. Her cause was introduced in 2008. So she's a servant of God. The diocesan phase is over, so all the documents, her biography, and everything else has gone on to be examined by the Congregation for the Causes of Saints. And the same sister who is the postulator for her cause is also looking after the canonization of her two cousins. So I would say that what you need to do if you want to forward her cause is look up, let me see if there's a site. Aha. Okay, great. If you go to the shrine of Fatima, there's a prayer for the beatification of the servant of God, Sister Lucia. It says, Most Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I adore you profoundly, and I thank you for the apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary and Fatima, that reveal to the world the riches of her Immaculate Heart. By the infinite merits of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, through the intercession of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I implore you, if it should be for your greater glory and the good of our souls, to glorify Sister Lucy, one of the shepherds of Fatima, by granting us the grace which we implore through her intercession. Amen. Our Father, Hail Mary, and glory be. So I would look up that prayer, and I would start saying it. And I would share it with as many people as I could get to say it.
Do they count the apparition itself as a miracle?
Not in this case.
Not in any. Wait, why not in this case?
Well, because it happened before she died. The miracles have to be things accomplished after her death through her intercession.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they could be counted during a life. I thought that was.
No, it's part of her biography, and it's useful and important. But the thing. Remember, the reason for the miracles is to prove the individual is a saint in heaven. Obviously, they were not a saint in heaven when they performed miracles on earth.
Wow, I didn't know this. So all these miracle workers don't have any of their miracles counted during their life.
No. I mean, it contributes to their reputation for holiness, obviously, which is why people start pushing to get them canonized after they die. But they need the miracles to take place after their death. So, like, let's say you've got Saint, you've got Arthur of Rambu, and he was known for healing the sick and raising the dead and all that. Well, he gets the reputation for holiness. People think he's terribly holy. He dies. And so then people start praying to him, and miracles occur, or they don't. And it's on the basis, once the cause has begun, it's on the basis of the miracles that happen after that he gets beatified and then canonized.
For St. Vincent Ferrer, they were counting up his miracles, and it got somewhere to like 800, and they were like, okay, we're good, stop now. So that was after his death? That's not during? Because
I don't know how that worked, and the regulations might have been different back then. I don't know. I only know what it's like now.
And yeah, because I remember we were talking about this, and you seemed to say like the situation for St. Patrick was different.
Oh yeah, very well. See, in St. Patrick's Day, there was no congregation for the causes of saints. And very often, if you look up a saint in an encyclopedia or something, if it says that he's pre-congregation, it means that his canonization was by popular acclaim. And
Okay.
St. Patrick is like that.
Okay.
And saints, the pre-congregation saints, oh yeah, the miracles in their lifetime, very big.
When did the congregation start?
Oh, good question. I should know the answer to, but the Middle Ages, I don't know, the 1100s, 1200s, 1300s, I don't know. But it was in the Middle Ages. And it became very, very regular because, you had all sorts of local saints popping up, and Rome wanted to establish some sort of order.
Right.
We see the same thing with the Orthodox now.
Right.
I mean, their saints are their method of canonizing saints is kind of, I don't want to say haphazard exactly, but it's closer to the way things were done before the congregation was created.
Right. All right. Question from Theo.
Yeah. What's Theo got on his mind? He's English.
What are your thoughts on the question of women wearing trousers or shorts? Would you say that the question is wider and deeper than just immodesty? Bishop de Castro Mayer used to say that trousers on a woman are worse than a miniskirt because while a miniskirt is sensual and attacks the senses, trousers are ideological and attack the mind. Are trousers an assault upon women's womanhood and thus representative of a deep-lying revolt against the order willed by God? Cardinal Siri wrote that the main problem is psychological. He said women wearing men's dress harms women's psychology because it is form of imitating and competing with the man who is considered stronger and more independent. By doing so, she is reacting to her femininity as though it is inferiority rather than diversity.
Well, in a way, it's almost as though he's answered his own question. I almost don't feel he's cited greater authorities than me. I almost don't feel like adding anything.
It's true.
I mean, I've frankly, I've never liked women in slacks. Never. I happen to think they're prettier in skirts and dresses.
This is one of those things I feel where we've gone so far down the rabbit hole, and this is like one of the first things, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, if you look at the earliest form of women's slacks, they were almost like dresses. They were shaped like dresses.
Mm.
And then eventually they became more manlike. And I'm so old. I remember when women rarely wore slacks outside of the house. You just didn't see it. And women wore slips so that the skirts and dresses would keep a particular shape and not be too,
Okay.
conform too closely to the shape of the lady.
I see.
And that, of course, in itself was the source of many amusements. Your slip is showing, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But no, I mean, well, what can I say? I'm certainly not in a position to go beyond what those two reverend gentlemen said. So let's move on.
All right. Next question is from Nicholas.
Hello, Nicholas.
Hello, gentlemen. I was wondering if Charles could describe the delightful history of the high office of Chief Mouser to the Cabinet Office of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. If he could also discuss the creation of new offices such as the Chief Mouser of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the Chief Mouser of Her Majesty's Treasury. Finally, if Charles could discuss the rivalry between the two Chief Mousers, Larry and Palmerston, and if Charles thinks it will ever be resolved.
Well, a Mouser, the Chief Mouser of any department of the British government, of Her Majesty's government, is, of course, that official charged with the eradication of mice. Now, generally speaking, this is an office that traditionally has been reserved to those of feline extraction. The Prime Minister's Chief Mouser resides at 10 Downing Street. And it's an old office. It goes back quite a few decades. The other two are much more recent. As for the rivalry between Palmerston, who I believe is just retired, and the other one, they rarely come into any conflict simply because their field of endeavor is separate. The office of Chief Mouser, of course, is dependent entirely upon Her Majesty's pleasure. And so, like any other emolument in the United Kingdom, like Lord Great Chamberlain, Lord Privy Seal, Lord President of the Council, these are all offices, great offices of state that have their origins in the mists of time. And probably the chief mouser of any given establishment is following in a very, although as I say officially, of the three that mentioned, the prime minister is the oldest, the permanent secretaries. But mousers in general have a tradition that goes back to the very beginning, not just of governance, but of human family life.
All right. I didn't know it was so. I didn't know there was such a storied legacy of that position.
It's part of the rich tapestry of our island story.
All right. Let's see. Question from Brian. Charles, I used to be pro-loyalist and still am to a degree, but less so after reading Eric Nelson's The Royalist Revolution. Many of the loyalists were Whigs who wanted to maintain the status quo, while some revolutionaries wanted to restore executive power. On the whole, what side ought a good monarchist to support?
Well, I would still stick with the Loyalists. I've read the book, and it's a very fine book. I recommend it highly. But the problem, as Nelson actually does point out, is that some of the arguments, the basic arguments that to which he's referring, is the idea that since some of the opponents of the Stamp Act and things like that and other taxes held that since the establishment of the colonies, with the exception of Georgia, happened under the Stuart kings and came about directly as a result between the first colonists and the king, and had nothing to do with the later Supreme Parliament, that rather than administering them by and with and through Parliament, as George VI did, or George III rather did, the king should administer them directly, with the colonial assemblies playing the role of Parliament. Well, that sounds like they're supporting the Stuart idea of kingship, doesn't it? But how true that was, and how it was simply a case of, well, this way we can escape the effective control of the British government, it's another story. And in any case, and of course what he says about the Loyalists is also true. They were trying to defend the post-1688 settlement as it applied to the Americas. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. And the fact that most of the Jacobites who were present in the 13 colonies, such as there were Loyalists, should tell one something. They fought for King George simply because it was a question of having a king or not. And as Nelson, ends his book and brings us to a very cogent point, when the Revolution and the Constitution were done, on one side of the water you would have a monarchy without a king, and on the other a king without a monarchy. And I don't know that either was a very good thing. So my vote still goes for the Loyalists despite everything.
All right, we've got 4 questions from Youssef.
Youssef.
Have you heard of QAnon?
Yes.
Why were prostitutes so important in the Wild West? Throughout history, it seems like prostitutes seem to hold serious power and control. Why do you think this is? And it's been like that ever since.
That's right. Because men are easily led.
Oh, man.
I mean, the place of the courtesan in history, which is a nice way of saying expensive fille de joie, has it's always been prominent. And of course, in the Old West, women of any description were in very, very short supply. And so the madams of brothels became powerful figures in their own right. You had a primarily male population in these western towns, and the madams acquired power accordingly. It doesn't speak well for the way things were handled, but it's true. Well, I mean, you had a similar situation in the realm of the pornocracy. You know, the Theophylact ladies tended to be very powerful, and they were, despite being noble, they were only one step above being madams. Men are funny creatures.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they are. And it's interesting to me. It's hit me recently. I was thinking about this. All the old Western shows and movies and so forth, the quote unquote dance hall girls, the madam of the local bordello, they're all always cast in a very sympathetic light. And the opponents of that sort of thing are always shown to be puritanical old meanies. But you know where you can see a real relic of that era? When the railroads came out, there was a man named, I think it was Fred Harvey. I may have the first name wrong, but it was definitely Harvey. He believed that one of the things the Old West needed to civilize it was the presence of women who were not prostitutes. So he came up with the idea of a chain of restaurants that would be very elegant, affordable, and present at every major railroad station from east to west. And this was the origin of the chain called the Harvey House. And there was a movie, he brought these girls out from the east, very refined. They lived in sort of sorority buildings with hatchet wielding mothers, you know, sort of den mother types, to make sure that their girls didn't fall into wicked ways or go off with their customers. And so the Harvey girls and the Harvey houses played a big part in the bringing of culture to the Old West. You know, you've got these rough, tough cowhands. They came into a place where they were expected to wash their hands and sit at table and, you know, use a knife and fork and behave like gentlemen, sort of, in front of these waitresses. So it had a big effect. And you know, the only Harvey house I ever ate in?
What?
At Union Station in downtown LA. It was still going when we came out to California.
Wait, Union Station in downtown LA? That's a train station.
Yeah, the Harvey houses were all at train stations.
Oh.
And
Okay.
some of them had hotels attached.
I see.
But there was a whole network of these Harvey houses throughout the West.
I see.
And the chain lasted into the 60s.
Huh.
So I remember my dad was really excited to be eating at a Harvey house because Dad was a big aficionado of the Old West, you know.
Yeah.
So he made typical dad remarks when we were going in, like, I remember these girls are used to gunslingers, so show them we're Eastern gentlemen.
Cute.
And the funny thing, though, too, is that there was a movie called The Harvey Girls that was based on this story, starring Garland and a friend of mine, Virginia O'Brien, the late Virginia O'Brien. And that introduced a very famous song in its day called the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe.
Okay.
The name of the railroad. Yeah. So that's that. The whole Harvey House thing was meant as a counterbalance to the dominance of prostitution in the towns of the Old West.
All right. What do you think of America and the rest of the world trying to go to a cashless society?
Not much. I mean, it's certainly, on the one hand, in a sense, it makes things more convenient, I guess. But I don't like that at all.
Hmm.
I like good old-fashioned cash. And I'll take it a step further. I wish we still had gold and silver coinage. I remember when they got rid of the silver coins. I don't remember when they got rid of gold, but I remember when they got rid of silver. And I wasn't impressed.
Okay. What is the clear historical difference between worship and veneration?
Worship is given toward something divine, toward God. Veneration, there are several levels of it, but that's given to anything else you respect. So we venerate the Virgin Mary, we venerate the saints, we venerate relics, we venerate any number of things. And then, of course, you can, in a lesser sense, venerate various historical sites and that kind of thing. But again, not in the same sense that you would venerate the saints, and certainly not in the same sense that you would venerate Our Lady.
Hmm.
The word venerable means something that you can venerate. One of the interesting ways that they distinguish between worship and veneration in Latin is Latin is for the word for veneration toward the saints is dulia, and what's or maybe it's Greek. Anyway, with that which is given to Our Lady is called hyperdulia, and then that which is given to God is called latria.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, looks like we've had about a 50-minute pre-show. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, a longer pre-show. Someone, one of the patrons said the sweet spot is 40 minutes, so over-delivered. Once again, I should hope so. But stay tuned, we're not done.
No, we're not.
We have, what is it, 12 questions, or no, 11 questions for the normal show. So
That's right. And remember that you're seeing the normal show before anyone else does. You don't just get to see the pre-show. It also means you don't have to wait until Wednesday or Monday rather.
that's right. Stay
So
tuned.
we'll be right back with you. And again, great job on the costumes. I feel like I'm back in St. Petersburg sipping vodka with the Tsar.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. See you.